call this show Healthy Living Live with Chef AJ. Hi, Kim and Teresa and Sharon and Heidi and Mary Ellen and Krista. Oh my God, so many people are there. And Teresa, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm Chef AJ, the host of Healthy Living Live. And my guest today, back by popular demand, because we had such a wonderful time interviewing him last time. A lot of people didn't know about him, but you are going to know more about him now. And if you didn't know about him before, you're certainly going to know about him because he's absolutely delightful. His name is Mark Huberman. He's the president of the NHA, and they just had the most fabulous conference that they actually were so generous to live stream for free this year. Not next year, though. You're going to have to come next year to see it. And he's here to tell you all about the rich history of the NHA. And if you have any questions, you can also ask them in real time. So welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for coming back, Mark.
Great to be here. Always good to be with you.
Great. So I'm going to take myself off screen now and ask some of the questions that have already come in. So the first thing is NHA. I know what the NRA is, but what's the NHA?
We are a long way from the NRA.
I know. I was just joking.
No, the NHA was founded in 1948, originally called the American Natural Hygiene Society, promoting the principles of natural hygiene as formulated by a lot of doctors in the 19th century and kind of synthesized by Dr. Herbert Shelton. And our name changed in the early 80s to the National Health Association so that people would a little better understand who we were and what we are. And so we've been around a long time. In fact, I would say we are the oldest organization in the world promoting the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet, something we've been doing now for 70 years. And we're unique because we are 501c3, and we've been 501c3 since the 1960s. And we don't sell anything. The only thing we sell is information and health. And I think I like to consider the NHA the gold standard of the whole food plant-based movement. Maybe you and I would call it the gold hammer standard of the whole food plant-based health movement, because as we know, vegan doesn't necessarily mean health. Plant-based doesn't necessarily mean health, but I think we know that it's unprocessed, like you called your first book. Mm-hmm. It's as much whole live foods as you can get. And as Alan has kind of said, with being SOS, without added oil, salt, or sugar. That's always been the NHA message. We've been doing it for a long time.
It's incredible because as I started to meet people that were NHA members, or as you called in the past, they were called natural hygienists. Maybe you can talk about that terminology. People like Jim Lennon that have eaten this way because just for health, not because they had a disease or wanting to lose weight. They are among the most vibrant people you ever could meet.
Well, I think if you ask Alan Goldhammer and Frank Sabatino and Jeff Novick and Mark Huberman, what they are, they would say they're natural hygienists. T. Colin Campbell term, I believe, is the one credited with coming up with the term whole food plant-based. But that's really the NHA health program, the natural hygiene health, at least from the diet standpoint, the natural hygiene diet, the Sheltonian diet has been whole food plant-based without added oil, salt, or sugar, without dairy, with any of those things for all of our years. So we've been at this game a long time. We've been fundamental with it.
But wasn't the roots in natural hygiene plant exclusive rather than just plant-based? Because the only problem I have with the term plant-based is that does allow then some wiggle room for animal problems. Animal products
have never been part of the natural hygiene diet.
Right. So you're plant exclusive.
We've been vegan from a health standpoint.
Right. Absolutely. So Herbert Shelton was the guy that started it all, huh?
He really was. It's an interesting thing. I was just going through a little chronology before we got here. About, when most people think today of the whole food plant-based diet movement, they think, well, who were the real pioneers of it? Well, I did a little chronology, if I can just look at my cheat notes here. So we had a lot of people think of Nathan Pritikin, right? Nathan Pritikin was, a guy who back when was coming up with this. Well, he wasn't even a doctor as well, but he believed in vegetarianism and all that. And then there was John Robbins and wrote, Diet for a New America. And in the 70s, people started to come into prominence with this. But I have a book on my shelf that I'll hold up here called Human Life, Its Philosophy and Laws. It was written by Dr. Shelton in 1926, calling for a revolution in the way we think about health and disease. That's 92 years ago. We were talking about a whole food plant-based diet called the Sheltonian diet, called mostly unprocessed, eating things in their whole natural sense. In 1951, the year I was born, he wrote a book called Superior Nutrition, which is a great title. And it's the way we really think about what we do today. Our nutrition approach is superior. This is where you get all your vitamins and minerals. 1951, he was writing this. In 1964, he wrote a book called Fasting Can Save Your Life. Now, fasting has gotten a lot of attention now. Certainly the groundbreaking work that Dr. Goldhammer is doing and Dr. Longo, is talking about fasting, mimicking diets and all that. 1964, the NHA published probably the most popular book ever written on the subject of fasting. Fasting Can Save Your Life. So the NHA has been at the foundation of this whole food, plant-based, progressive health movement longer than anybody. In fact, way before anybody. I'm pretty proud of it.
That's incredible. Well, you've probably been at it longer than anybody I know, Mark, because haven't you actually been vegan since birth or since before birth?
I just turned 67 years old, and I've been whole food, plant-based, vegan for every one of those days, and I'm pretty proud of that. I haven't met a lot of people like me, but I'm a pretty happy guy. I'm not a lonely guy in any sense. I guess what I find so rewarding is kind of growing up in a diet and a lifestyle kind of by faith and by belief. You trust what your parents do is right. But to see all of that validated today, to see when I sit back and I watch Joel Fuhrman on public television extolling the benefits of our diet, when I watch What the Health and I see Alan Goldhammer and Michael Clapper and NHA physicians, that's pretty gratifying, exciting, and incredibly personally fulfilling.
That's incredible. I don't know how often you talk to people about this diet that aren't already in the plant-based world, but do you ever get to? Because I know you had a career, and you still do, as a magistrate and a judge. Did diet ever come up in your work where you had to either talk about your diet or defend it? Because it just seems like it's hard enough trying to convince people to give up meat, but to then do the more pristine diet, which is the diet I believe is the best, people are like, well, that's too extreme. That's impossible.
Maybe it's just a personal philosophy of Mark Huberman, but whether it's my Judaism or my love of theater or anything else, or my politics, which I have very strong opinions about, I'm not a proselytizer. I believe that the way you convince most people, whether it's your family or otherwise, is by example. If people ask me, and I've been a very public citizen for most of my life, as you say, I've been a judge, I've been an attorney, I've been on all kinds of organizations and boards, but I don't make a big deal of it. If people ask me what I do, or if they express an interest in what I do, I'll talk to them all day long. But I don't believe that proselytizing is the way you convince people of anything in this world. You do it by example. And fortunately, we have a lot of great examples these days. And there are people, certainly, when I go to my high school reunions and I see kids that, if they haven't passed away, that are my age, that look like my parents, a lot of them do inquire as to what you're doing. What do you, kind of that old joke, I want what she's having. I think my wife Wanda is, kind of a shining example of how after a trip to True North in 2011, is younger than when I met her. She radiates. And so people do inquire as to, where do you get your energy? How do you have, how do you look so good? And it's not just how your figure and all that, but it's, your radiance, your personality, your attitude. So I think that I certainly do get questions from time to time, as you know, because most people are in the pleasure trap. It's really tough for people to change. My late great father used to say that sadly, most people don't worry about their health until after they've lost it. They got to face a real crisis. And even when they do that, they'll have the heart attack and they'll still go back to smoking. But then there's a lot of people that do. Maybe to me, the most optimistic thing I have about where we are in the world today, and from the conference that we just had and the one that you have upcoming, we're seeing more and more people who are blessed not to have come to this way of living because of some health crisis or because they're on their last leg, just because it just kind of made sense. There's a rising consciousness about the benefit to all of this environmentally, in terms of the planet, in terms of being kind to animals and all that. It's clicking for more and more people. I find that really exciting. The membership in the NHA is exploding. We may be the fastest growing health organization in the country. We had 500 new members we've added since the last conference. And every day I click on my inbox when I appear on shows like yours, people are saying, hey, what is this? You're not selling anything? You're not selling any pills or potions? No, we have this great magazine. We put on great conferences. We present great speakers. That's it. And there are more and more people. And maybe it's also because of the internet. You know, anybody can go on Netflix and see Forks Over Knives. You can see What the Health. You can see these remarkable documentaries. So consciousness is rising. It's a long way of saying, you know, to your original question about, do I get questions? Of course, I've led a novel life. And people that want to know that I lived 32 and a half years on raw foods,
that's amazing.
A novelty. So I do get my share of questions. But again, kind of like take the Doug Lyle approach. Well, you know, works for me. You know, my doctor is doing good.
I wonder if they're going to donate your body to the Smithsonian, as they like that. You know, you'll be the longest.
You know, I just want to add that one conviction that I do have, being in this business as long as I have and growing up in it, is I don't believe that this lifestyle guarantees you perfect health. I don't think I'm going to be like Methuselah and live, you know, 200 years. I think it gives us the opportunity to be the best that we can. We can, and as I'm 67 years old, I think, as Dr. Esselstyn would say, my warranty ran out, you know, years ago. So I want to make sure I'm going to, you know, live the best years of my life are still ahead of me by doing the best I can every day. But there's no guarantees. No guarantee. I just think that the likelihood of my contracting some of the degenerative diseases that most people do, most of which are lifestyle based, I don't think that's going to happen to me. I hope not, but I'm not one of those that subscribes to the belief that I'm going to have perfect health. I'm never going to get a cold. I'm never going to develop this condition. I'm never going to develop a sty in my eye. I'm never going to get a cold. I don't think that's accurate, but I do the best I can. I'm pretty confident that what I'm doing is as good as I could do. So that's what I try to do.
So we have a great question from Carmen. Does the NHA have a Facebook page?
We do. Yeah, you can just Google NHA and you'll find us. And we're more and more people are adding to it every day and posting things. We're posting things. We also just established a YouTube channel. So if you go to National Health Association, Google on YouTube, you'll find a nice page where it's where we've archived a number of these interviews that you've done and others have done with me, and also some really good documentaries and of our recent conference. There's some good stuff.
That's amazing. Misty says that you must have had remarkable parents, and it's great that you didn't rebel.
You know, I think that when I look back and growing up in the 1950s, where the consciousness of being even a vegetarian was really pretty strange, eating rabbit food and all the like. I think that is why I towed the line as much as anything. I had the greatest parents in the world. I think I grew up in the father knows best family. My parents lived and died for everything my brother and I ever did. And they walked the walk, this way of living. We loved them. We trusted them. They also took me, as I grew up, to NHA conferences every year. So I saw that I wasn't the only person in the world like this. There were other families that found the beauty of this way of living and diet. But bar none, I guess I would say one other thing about my parents is that, you know, some people grow up, as Joel Fuhrman wrote the book, Eat to Live. Most people live to eat. He says you eat to live. My parents grew up, you know, I loved my salads every day and we had food, but food was just our fuel to the rest of life. We were involved, my parents involved me in theater and politics, and we traveled and we did all kinds of things so that food was the means to the end. It wasn't the end. It wasn't an end in of itself. So I loved eating, but I loved being involved with life.
Do you think possibly that because you never were subjected to the pleasure trap, it was a little bit easier for you? Because, you know, like they say that if you don't crave alcohol if you've never had a drink, you don't crave a cigarette if you never had a cigarette.
I think that's true. I think I've always believed that taste is a learned behavior. And, you know, never having crossed that threshold of, you know, for 32 and a half years, even eating cooked foods, you know, baked potatoes and things like that, I certainly didn't miss it. Not having milk, I didn't miss milk. Not having bread, I didn't miss bread. Not having pizza, I didn't miss pizza. Not having ice cream, I didn't miss ice cream. I had an ice cream. My parents had a Champion juicer, and they made me banana ice cream, you know, forever. But I think that's true. I have no doubt. I think in our last interview, you said I should write a book called "Don't Get Started." And that's kind of stuck with me, and I'm thinking about that. I think that is certainly a lot to do with how I was able to toe the line. I can say that, I never really got tempted by, and even in my own family, they weren't even vegan when I was growing up. I mean, my mother was a great vegetarian cook, but they had all kinds of cakes and made her homemade ice cream and things like that. But the only things that ever really bothered me is that when I would go and I'd see a pig on a spit, that to me just seemed like, what's wrong with the world? That just seemed crazy to me. Or if I'd go into a grocery store, and even to this day, if I'd see live lobsters in this water tank crawling around with their snappers closed and tied up, and then people take them up and dump them in hot water, I'm thinking the world's got to be crazy. And those are the old, but again, I mean, I look at I see somebody eating a hamburger, and I don't think, my God, I see the little cow that got ground into beef, but I certainly find that whole. I think the world would be a much better place if we weren't consuming meat and doing all this harm to animals that are necessary to sustain that kind of a diet. But to me personally, I kind of like, what they say about you accentuate the positive, you eliminate the negative. I always loved what I did. I never really sat and judged and looked down on what everybody else did. I also think I'm just kind of humble. I don't think we should spend our life judging what other people do.
So how come you didn't become a doctor instead of a lawyer?
I never liked blood. I never liked shots. I had one traumatic moment, actually. I can remember when I was little. I grew up without immunizations, and fortunately in Ohio, you were able to. Parents could object, and you could do that. But I went to our elementary school. We were the war babies, and so the local community elementary school was so big. We had so many kids that I actually had to go to a church for half the year in the basement of a church where we had our kindergarten class. And there was one day where it was like shots day, where they were giving shots in school. And I was just mortified that they were going to take me in the back and give me a shot. It was probably a traumatic moment. I fortunately avoided it. I screamed too loud, I think, and they didn't bother. And they kind of went and asked my parents. But no, I never, I always wanted to be, I guess, I'm a lawyer. I kind of like being a lawyer.
Okay, well, that's great.
Being a shield.
Some people have joined us late, so just in case, this is Mark Huberman. He is the president of the NHA, which stands for the National the National. Yeah, I always get confused. I want to call it it's currently the National Health Association, but it used to be the Natural Hygiene Association.
Natural Hygiene Society.
Natural Hygiene Society.
Natural Hygiene Society. Yeah, that's what we were from 1948 to about 1982, somewhere around there.
When the old name, I kind of think of like dental hygiene. When I think of
that's
hygiene,
why we changed the name.
Yeah,
that's what most people thought it was feminine hygiene products or something.
Oh my gosh!
I think it's an interesting thing. At our last conference, I think the profound history of the natural hygiene movement from the 1900s and that is now gaining some real attention of where the real pioneers of health reform are coming from. And it is an amazing thing that the teachings of natural hygiene have probably been mentioned more in the last couple of years at our conferences than maybe they have been in 30 or 40 years, because I think it's just gaining attention now, just how far ahead of their time. Isaac Jennings talking about water fasting in the 1830s, and Russell Troll lecturing to the Smithsonian Institute on these hygiene principles, and Sylvester Graham and James Jackson, these people that were talking 150, 200 years ago that health results from healthful living, that the solution to health problems are not going to come from, as Caldwell Esselstyn is saying now, from a pill or a potion or an operation. That's not where health is going to come from. Health is built, not bought. It's today in today's news. The FBI just arrested a Congressman, Chris Collins, from Buffalo, New York. Why was he arrested? For insider trading. But what was he insider trading on? He was part of a board of a company manufacturing and doing studies on a drug to help cure MS in Australia. And he and his whole family invested in all this. And he gets when he was at the White House lawn at a White House picnic, congressional picnic, he gets a text from someone in the company that a major clinical trial failed for this drug. So what does he do? He calls all his family members and say, hey, sell your stock. And they sell their stock and it's going to save like $800 million in losses in that. He got arrested for that. But the point I'm making is, again, we just keep going down the wrong road. MS is not going to be MS, cancer, heart disease. They're not going to be solved by pills and vaccinations and potions and things like that. It's health is going to, what the natural hygienists have been saying for 200 years and in the last 70 years in the NHA is that you got to look at the causes of health and the causes of disease if you want to really reverse them. And most of those diseases, as we know, are lifestyle related. Our good mutual friend, Dr. Clapper, what's he say? It's the food. It's the food for a high percentage of things. But it's even bigger than that. It is lifestyle related. People don't get enough sleep. They don't get enough rest. They don't get enough exercise. All of those things, that's what the natural hygienists have been clamoring for 150 years. Who, when we talk about medical history, who gets the credit? Well, Pasteur for inventing, these vaccines. That's not where it is. That's not where health is going to be resolved. That's not where longevity is going to be established. Health is built, not bought. Health does result from healthful living. Yeah. Healthcare is self-care. These are all principles the NHA has been preaching for 70 years.
And they're still as true today. Sharon was saying it's so important to teach kids that they're not alone. Do you think there's another person somewhere in the world that's like Mark Huberman that was raised the same way you? Have you met that person yet? It'd be fun to have you both.
He's a little bit younger than I. He's the NHA treasurer. His father and mother were both at the recent NHA conference. He's a little younger than me, but he grew up like me. And Joel Fuhrman. Joel Fuhrman's father was a Sheltonian hygienist and went to, was a big proponent, member of the NHA, donated for years. Alan Goldhammer, kind of came to this a little later. He was in college and undergraduate school. Frank Sabatino in chiropractic college, they kind of figured out. But there's a lot of people that maybe haven't been born into it. Mark is one who was. But there's a lot that have come to it certainly early in life and consider themselves blessed just like I do.
That's fantastic. We got Cathy Fisher that just joined us, so that's terrific. She does a lot for your magazine. Talk about your magazine.
Can I say something about you and Cathy Fisher since you just
met me? Absolutely.
When I grew up, and I've been married to my amazing wife Wanda for 27 years now. But when we got married, to me, having a baked potato and steamed vegetables every night, that was more than a salad. Baked potato and steamed vegetables was just fine with me. And the apple and cashew butter was a great treat for me. And that's all I ever needed. But that was kind of boring for the uninitiated. In the years where I have died and gone to heaven, is that in my adult life, my more mature adult life, the Cathy Fishers and Chef AJ's and Katie Mays and a handful of others have shown that you can have creative, good tasting, interesting food that the rest of the world will even enjoy, but let alone Mark Huberman. I had my first cake for my 65th birthday or 65th birthday. My first cake was a Cathy Fisher carrot cake with some pineapple and cashew icing on it. In my whole life, my cake when I grew up was a cut cantaloupe with candles around the side and some blueberries in the middle and a scoop of cashew butter. I had a real cake. Oh. This is something, and I feel that's my thanks to you for what you guys have done to make this so much easier for not only new people coming to this diet, but certainly that want to raise children. That you can make a mock tuna, a tuna wrap that's as good as anything you can have. You can make a muffin. You can make cookies that aren't like bricks like they were, and when cookies were made back in the day. So you've really done a tremendous service to this movement and made it so much easier. But that's my personal thanks to both of you for bringing a little joy to my palate.
I'm not so sure about Cathy's history with the pleasure trap, but I know for me, having grown up in the pleasure trap, it made it possible for me to create these recipes. You know what I mean? Because I had a point of reference to come from.
I thank you every day. I did
Well,
not. I just enjoy the blessings of it.
I'm so happy that you can enjoy these now after so many years of not even knowing what they were, practically.
That's true. What I didn't know didn't hurt me, but once I got to know it,
Yeah. Well, you think about, we're talking about people growing up like this. Gar Goldhammer, for example.
he did. Sure. Yeah. And, again, much younger than me in the scheme of things, and maybe a couple decades younger, but he's blessed as well.
You know what I was thinking would be fun?
There was a young couple at the conference. There was a young couple at this conference. Young couple, young in relation to me. The Springstons from in Maryland, I think they live, and they had the cutest little button of a girl. Was at the conference. She was 6 years old. Patricia Springston, who is just personifies everything that's best, and she's being raised the way I was raised, and she was much prettier than I was handsome back in those days. But again, I think it's so much easier now. You've made it so much easier now to do this. So much more pleasureful. Alan talks about the pleasure trap.
Mm-hmm.
How about the pleasure life that you get by really enjoying this way of living? I think growing up, if people judged the way I grew up, they'd look at it as pretty Spartan and pretty boring. And objectively, I would say it probably was. But
you gave me an idea, Mark, because as much as we love hearing from the wonderful doctors and professionals, you had mentioned the gentleman that works for you that was a little bit younger that was raised eating this way. We mentioned Gar Goldhammer, and you just mentioned a 6-year-old girl. Could you imagine a panel with the 4 of you on it? Because I would find that fascinating, talking to different people of different generations that actually were raised eating this way with no pleasure trap foods.
I agree. We'll have to. We both do conferences, so we'll both have to think about that.
Yeah, that would be so interesting. So you mentioned the conference. Tell us about the conference. How long has it been going on? How long have you been producing it? And tell us a little bit about the highlights of the one you just had, and when the next one is, so people can start marking their calendars.
So again, this is a unique thing about the NHA, is that today there are Forks Over Knives do wonderful conferences. Dr. McDougall has been doing wonderful conferences for 15, 20 years. The NHA has been doing annual health conferences for 70 years. We just finished our 70th anniversary of having conferences. I think our first one, actually technically our first conference, was in 1949. But that's where the faithful came together to learn about these principles, and where Dr. Shelton and Dr. Benish and Dr. Burton, people that were the peers of Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Sabatino, that's where they came, and people could come and learn from them. So we've been doing these a long time, and we went on hiatus for a couple of years in 2015 and 16. We were kind of in an organizational transition, but in 2017, when in my second year of taking over the NHA, we did a conference in Cleveland at the Cleveland Marriott East. It was a great event. We had a great lineup of speakers. It sold out. We moved to a bigger venue on the other side of Cleveland at the Cleveland Airport Marriott, and it sold out as well. And we're going back there for one more year because they're, as you know, when you go to a new hotel and you want to provide meals, it takes a little while to educate them on how we want our meals, doing it SOS and all of that. So we had a great relationship with this hotel. So our conference that we had June 29th to July 1st was sensational at the Cleveland Airport Marriott. And the next issue of Health Science will have 5-6 pages of highlights on it. As you said, courtesy of Jeannie Schumacher, the Starch Queen, she live streamed almost all of the lectures that are available on the NHA Facebook page and on her own page. But it was great. I mean, we had as good a powerful lineup of speakers as I think you'll ever find. We had Joel Furman and Frank Sabatino and Alan Goldhammer and Frank Sabatino, Stefan Esser, Joel Kahn, Pam Popper, as bright a lady as you'll ever meet in the world, Asa and Joanna Frey from Puerto Rico, who spent time at True North. It was Gracie Ewan, who was from True North. We had a really incredible lineup of speakers all packed into one weekend with all your meals included. And we just signed a contract again because the hotels did such an amazing job for us that we are set for just the same weekend, but one day earlier. So June 28th, 29th, and 30th, 2019 at the Cleveland Airport Marriott. You can register now on the NHA website at healthscience.org. Among our speakers that we have next year is the one, the only Chef AJ will be with us. So that's going to add a little bit of star power to the conference. I have no doubt we're going to be sold out again. If you register now and from now till the end of the year, you can save $80. I think it's 50. It's $450 is the early bird rate, and then it goes up to $495. I'm sorry, is the early bird rate, and then it goes up to $575. So you'll save if you register now at $495. We already have, based on last conference, 25 people signed up already at the last conference to be at this conference. So I have no doubt we're going to be sold out again. It's a really nice hotel, and there's a beautiful Metro Park that we incorporated some hikes into it. The Cleveland Metro Park is one of the most beautiful ones in the world. We incorporated hikes into it. We incorporated yoga into it. We incorporated trolley tours of Cleveland and a trip to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And our room rate is like what you have in Vegas. Only in Cleveland, you don't usually see this, $89 a night for your room. And that applies to Thursday night as well as Sunday night, 2 days before, 2 days after. So you can really make a vacation if you've never been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you've never been to Cleveland. It's a great town. So we're really excited. I think we're going to be, I know we're going to be sold out again. So I urge people to register early and save.
Well, we have a very nice comment from Heidi about the conference. She says, can't say enough good things about the NHA Conference. Mark, Wanda, and their team of volunteers made both of the last 2 years just absolutely terrific. Terrific speakers, delicious food, and so many like-minded people in one place. We'll definitely be there next year.
And I have a hunch that Heidi is the same Heidi that's from Pittsburgh and now Hilton Head, where I'm going with Dr. Goldhammer next week, where you were a year ago, to the Eat Smart, Live Long Club in Hilton Head.
Oh, I love that place.
Sold out crowd. It's incredible. And Heidi, if that's the same Heidi, she's down there. And Wanda and I are looking forward to seeing her with Alan and having another sold out group. It's one of the great places in the world for if you want to retire well down in Sun City, Hilton Head. It's
absolutely. And Leslie Haas is watching this, and she's one of the three sisters.
Yes,
yeah,
I can't wait to see Leslie as well.
And she'll be in Vegas. A lot of us actually will have a little bit of a reunion in Vegas.
So I had to say, if there's two conferences that people should see,
right.
If you really want the gold standard, it's yours and ours. So one on the West Coast, or one near the West Coast, and one more east. Those are the two, because we really do. We play the same music.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are the gold standard. You don't have to worry how you're going to eat when you come to our conferences. You're going to have speakers that are all preaching a consistent message. And I think that's really rare, even in the whole food plant-based health movement. I think that's how we distinguish ourselves from a lot of other events that are out there.
Absolutely. So, with Stefan Esser, you mentioned him. He was a terrific speaker. He was somewhat raised this way too, right?
He was. And, it's a good point. Stefan is, you could count on your hand, but he's one of them. His grandfather, again, in terms of who are the real pioneers of the whole food plant-based diet movement, the founders of the NHA, ANHS back in 1948 were Stefan's grandfather, Dr. William Esser, who operated a True North Health Center in Lake Worth, Florida, called Dr. Esser's Health Ranch for over 50 years. Dr. Gerald Benish, who was Alan Goldhammer's mentor, who operated a place in Cleveland and then in Escondido, California, in the last 20-some years of his life. Dr. Robert Gross in Hyde Park, New York. These are the real people that really deserve the credit for being the real pioneers of the modern day whole food plant-based diet movement. And one of my missions in the NHA is to give these people the credit that they so richly deserve for being so far ahead of the game in preaching this way of living.
Terrific. So before I even heard of Mark Huberman, I knew of your magazine. I remember the first time going to True North in January of 2011 and sitting in Dr. Goldhammer's waiting room and looking at a very beautiful magazine, color pages, very, very nicely photographed recipes. Tell us a little bit about the magazine.
Well, I think that health science, I don't want to brag that I'm the editor of it or anything like that, but I think it's the best health magazine on the planet. It's been around since we founded it. We created it in 1978. It's been published consistently since then. It currently comes out quarterly. It's 40 pages long. And what is unique about it is that not only does it only have the gold standard of the whole food plant-based diet movement that we talk about, but it also talks about fasting. I don't think there's any other health publications in the world that also regularly talk about the benefits of supervised water fasting. So it does that, but it has no advertising.
Right.
40-page, high-quality magazine, and that's something that I'm very, very proud of. Again, coming back to what maybe differs the NHA from almost everybody else. We are not only are we 501c3 and have always been that way, nonprofit, but we sell nothing. We sell only, our only goal is to advance the knowledge and to shine a spotlight on the Chef AJs and Cathy Fishers and Alan Goldhammer's and Frank Sabatino's of what they're doing in the world. And every issue that comes out has a feature interview with some of the leading voices of the whole food plant-based movement. And what's unique about those interviews, I think, is that it's not just, you're interviewing Neil Bernard and you find out about, well, Neil Bernard's latest book, but you find out who Neil Bernard is, where he came from, what his background is. And in the current issue, the one that's out there right now, spring 2018, who is the feature interview in this one? None other than Chef AJ. And for your and the next issue has an interview with Dr. Greg Fitzgerald that I'll talk about in a second. But if I think so, not only does every issue have a feature interview, there's a recipe section in every issue. Most health magazines, it's nothing but recipes. As you know, you go into a health food store, recipes and the latest vitamin or the latest Wonder Cure or something. But ours has a recipe section, but all the recipes are come from, the kings and queens of the whole food plant-based movement, the Chef AJs, the Katie Mays, the Cathy Fishers. And those are the only people we allow to present recipes in the magazine. You've got to toe the line with our kind of gold standard of health. So you'll find that in every issue. And in the upcoming issue that's coming out in about a week, it's at the printer now, we'll have recipes by Chef AJ from your new book, The Secrets of the Ultimate Weight Loss. It's 4 of your top recipes and 1 or 2 from, I think, your supplement on dates and on treats, desserts, and all that. Nice. So I'm pretty proud about that. And if people, this is kind of something I'd like to offer to your viewers here. If anybody emails mhuberman@healthscience.org and requests a copy, I will send them an electronic copy of the spring issue of the magazine at no cost. And if they like what they see and they want a hard copy, I've got, I don't know, maybe 70 copies left. I will send them a copy if they join the NHA shortly thereafter. And if they join within the next probably 4 days, I got to give the list to the printer for the next issue of Health Science magazine that has 4 or 5 pages of conference highlights, the interview with Greg Fitzgerald, and a wonderful article by Frank Sabatino. They'll get in that window, so they'll get that issue as part of their membership. And membership in the NHA, it's probably the best bargain in the world. It's $35 a year, and you get 4 issues of the magazine. And when you join the NHA, one of the benefits is you can log in and register on our website as a member. You get over 20 years of back issues of Health Science, all of that content. You get ebooks of the classics of the natural hygiene movement, Fasting Can Save Your Life, Health for the Millions, The Greatest Health Discovery, The Science and Fine Art of Natural Hygiene, for free. Free downloads. If you have a Kindle, if you have a whatever reader you have, you can get it in that format, absolutely free, all for your $35. We haven't raised that $35 in probably 20 years.
So the $35 is the fee to join the NHA, but you also get the magazine.
Magazine, that's the core of your membership and access to our website. And again, if people email me at mhuberman@healthscience.org, I'll send them the issue, the spring 2018 issue that features you.
Great.
And summer 2018 issue that is just about to come in the mail. They'll get on the list for that, and it'll come right to their mailbox. And I have
posted your email on the screen, and I've kept it there for quite a long time. Okay. You had mentioned about how there's no advertising in the magazine, and it would make sense, Mark, because you can't buy health. So really, what could you possibly sell? Nothing.
Well, the only thing that doesn't make sense is that if you're familiar with, and as I'm sure you are, for having published a couple of books and publications, publishing a 40-page high-quality magazine with soy inks rather than conventional inks, that is very expensive. And Health Science, to produce 4 issues a year, costs almost $40,000.
Wow.
And the only way we do that's not covered by it barely covers a $35 membership. Mm-hmm. We fortunately, members of the NHA are pretty generous. They're pretty proud of the legacy and the history and the educational work that we do. So people donate and they contribute. And every year around August, we do an appeal for funds to help us keep it in publication because we want to make it affordable for everybody. A lot of people say, well, why don't you just make it an e-publication? It'll be so much cheaper because of the cost of printing and mailing and all that. And you know what? I mean, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I don't mind reading, highlights on the news and things. But I like to hold something in my hand and read it and study it and read it over and over and over again and not have it disappear. And plus, a lot of our members are older. They don't like to read their books on the internet. When Newsweek went virtual, I stopped. It's not the way I read magazines.
I know.
I know
what you mean.
I like to hold them in my hand. And plus, I think when your viewers see, as you're saying, when they see health science, it's as high quality a publication as you. I mean, I don't mean its content. It just looks good.
Right, and it feels good in your hand. It's not those weird kind of paper that some magazines are. It's very professional. Romel is saying that
Cathy Fisher is the copy editor of the magazine, so it's good.
Right. So Romel is saying that I'm so sorry because I can't see if this is a man or a woman, Romel, just because I have very old eyes, but he or she is subscribing today, as all of you guys should. This is an excellent value to get this beautiful magazine for $35 a year, not to mention that you're a member of the NHA supporting this work of pioneers like Herbert Shelton that's being perpetuated now by people like Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Esser and things like that. Plus you get all the other content, just the access to the website that they don't realize that they get.
As we're talking, I keep glancing at my computer that I'm looking on, and there are all these pop-ups coming from people that are asking for copies of the magazine. So I'm
nice. That's a great way to catch your email in there.
Last time I was on your show, over 100 people joined the NHA.
Wow.
Within a 5-day period. So
that's absolutely amazing. That's terrific. So those books that you held up earlier, are they still in print? Because I've never even heard of those.
Well, Human Life, Its Philosophy and Laws, this classic by Shelton, this would probably cost you $100 on eBay. It is not.
Wow.
Most of Dr. Shelton's books, when he wrote The Hygienic System in the 1930s, he wrote a 7-volume set that dealt with each aspect of health, from diet to fasting to exercise. We in the NHA reproduced those, at least 4 or 5 of them, under what we call a series of the science and fine art of natural hygiene, the science and fine art of food and nutrition, the science and fine art of fasting, the science and fine art of exercise. We reprinted those, and they're available. We don't have any more hard copies left, but they're available as ebooks for free downloads, so that they are available. But there's also, if people are really interested in the history of the natural hygiene movement, we published a book that I'll hold up here called The Greatest Health Discovery. The NHA office did this back in probably 1968 or something, but it really gives people a rich history of the NHA, of the natural hygiene movement, and the NHA's role in kind of perpetuating it. That's available as a free book that you can view on our website, called The Greatest Health Discovery, which is really what we consider this diet and lifestyle. It is the greatest health discovery. And when people figured that out in the 1900s, 18 and 1900s, and now today, it is the greatest health discovery. It's not the greatest health discovery wasn't the germs and viruses and vaccinations and all that. It's here. It's not the latest heart transplant procedure or a lung transplant procedure or all the miraculous things they're able to do. That's not where real health and longevity come from. It's health is built, not bought.
Absolutely. Will we ever get a book from Mark Huberman?
Again, I'm really keeping pretty busy running the NHA, but it's certain. I was just actually talking with a videographer, a pretty talented videographer that I met, that wants to talk about a book that I'd really like to do on the real history of the natural hygiene movement and bring it up to date, and I might play a small role in that.
That would be incredible. So I have a question from Cathy. She says, would you consider yourself to be a Nutriterian as Dr. Furman is? I'm a Goldhammer-tarian.
Dr. Furman, he might disagree with me, but Dr. Furman lives exactly like I do. I think his Nutritarianism does allow for a 10% of this. I think he wrote a book and has a health philosophy that's geared to the masses, because recognizing that not everybody is born the way I'm born, that has those kind of taste buds. So he allows for some flexibility in there. But that's not Joel Fuhrman. Joel Fuhrman might say you can have a little bit of wine or a little something. Joel Fuhrman doesn't. Joel Fuhrman lives like I do, like Alan Goldhammer does, like Jeff Novick does, like Jim Lemon does, like Stefan Esser does. We Nutriterian, I wouldn't say that. I'd say I'm a natural hygienist, but I would say Joel Fuhrman's a natural hygienist. But what his Nutriterian diet is, if the world adopted the Nutriterian diet, we'd be a much better place, and millions of people, thousands and thousands of people are. So that's a great thing. But in terms of if you examine the Nutriterian diet, I'm stricter than that.
I was thinking people don't realize you have a rich history in show business. And I was thinking, at the next conference, maybe we could either have a talent show or do some kind of musical extravaganza.
My favorite song is when I was a theater major in college before I became a lawyer, before I went to law school. And one of my favorite musicals was The Fantastics. And you've seen that classic. And there's a song in there that says, called Plant a Radish. And it talks about a man who plants a garden is a very happy man. And that's me. I'm a very happy man. I do have a garden, and I'm a vegetarian, and I'm a very happy man. And so you and I perhaps can sing Plant a Radish at our next conference. It would be great.
That one I don't know. I thought we were going to do something for Guys and Dolls because you told me to ask you what's playing at the Roxy.
Yeah, call a lawyer and sue me.
I know that's so great. That's so great. If you guys haven't seen Guys and Dolls, it's me and Mark's very favorite musical because he is a natural Nathan Detroit, and I was born to play Adelaide.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But you know what? I think the point is that when I do the interview that I did with Greg Fitzgerald in the next issue of Health Science, which people will get, and Greg Fitzgerald is a DO, DC, ND from Australia, who's been part of our health movement. He was a disciple of the late Dr. Alec Burton. And Greg was one of the most enthusiastically received speakers at both of our last two conferences. He came all the way himself just to be a part of it. But at the end of his interview, he writes something to the effect that, Dr. Clapper would say it's the food, but life is more than just the food. Life is really having a garden and enjoying life. And if all you think about is food and diet, I think you're going to have a pretty neurotic life because it's bigger than that. Mm-hmm. And you never need to lose sight of the big picture. And every time you and I chat and we start strumming song, start sharing lyrics of songs that we both love, it's a great thing to do. Keep life in bigger perspective.
Wow. Marjorie just posted here. I don't know if you can see the comments, Mark, but she posted a poem about a radish. Maybe she could perform. I don't know if she's coming to the next conference, but maybe she could.
I'm sure she will. It's the same Marjorie that I'm thinking of. Marjorie goes to lots of conferences.
Right.
We're at True North, and she was at a conference, cool. And she's very talented. She always brings her guitar.
Actually, she won the talent show. It was either last year, I think, or the year before, singing her own version of American Pie. She's
American very talented. That's the same Marjorie.
Yep, same Marjorie. All right. Well, guys, any final questions for Mark before we sign off? Please know that you can share this broadcast in real time, especially if you're on your phone. It's so easy. You just push a share button. It goes to all your groups and pages. And make sure that you sign up for Mark's generous offer, or better yet, subscribe to be a member of the NHA and get that beautiful magazine.
You can join at healthscience.org. It's easy as pie, and you can sign up for a conference as well. There's a conference button right there, right on the homepage.
Absolutely. Any idea
next year?
And any idea who some of the other speakers are?
I know it will be Dr. Goldhammer. I know it will be Dr. Sabatino. I was just on the phone with Dr. Esser again. And great. I'm hoping that we'll have your keynote speaker, Neil Bernard. Neil's been with us before. He's been great. So we're seeing who we can get. Anthony Lim, for anybody that's never heard Anthony Lim. Anthony's just a treasure. So you'll just like the kind of people you present are the kind of people we present. We just will have a few more of them. We spend a little more money than you do.
Yeah,
we're able to do that. We have people who are generous and support us, and we're nonprofit, and so we're able to do that. And it's we really pack a lot of people into one weekend, and it'll be a weekend you won't soon forget.
That'll be great. Well, believe it or not, I don't know if you guys can still hear me. We just got a sound glitch from Mark. And I can't hear Mark anymore, and he's frozen. But that's okay, because I think we got everything done. You're so welcome, Colleen. Thank you, everyone else, for watching. And please share this broadcast, subscribe to the magazine. Thank you, Mark and Wanda, for all the wonderful work you do. And please check out the website, healthscience.org, and get your early bird special on that conference for next June. You know it's going to sell out. I'm going to be there. The Hammer's going to be there. And we hope you're going to be there too. And thank you all for watching another episode of Healthy Living Live. I'm Chef AJ, and I make healthy taste delicious so that people that were born into the NHA can eat it. Take care, everyone. Bye.